what took the American democratic experience decades to accomplish. It's underway. So today I wish to address what the Oromo can and should do to prepare for that day and the days that follow. I want to focus on what OSA's role can be. Because as I say, that day will come. And in the case of the Arab Spring, it's been a surprise to almost everyone how quickly the old governments were overthrown. They appeared all-powerful. But in reality, when pushed, they were very brittle. The Ethiopian regime is also very brittle. Strong, but very brittle. This was Terry Lyon's conclusion in a paper commissioned by AFRICOM last year, and I agree. In the Arab case, the countries and governments they challenged had not expressed the will of the people. When the people began to speak out and find their voice, the world heard them loud and clear, and sympathized. The regimes cracked, and it was a big step. Now the hard work for them has begun. The Oromo are at a different point, but the urgency is great. So first let's ask, what did the protesters of the Arab Spring want? Demand for citizenship, rights, manifested in democracy, pluralism, ability to act in their own interests. They wanted the rule of law, which they would participate in by hammering out. They didn't want promises from leaders. They wanted something they had a connection with and an input into. They want to manage their own affairs through an institution that embodies their values. They want social justice. These are the most powerful driving forces. The feelings of ordinary people are to gain access to health care, schools, courts, to be treated fairly. And although they acted from deeply held religious values, they didn't want religious regimes. They wanted democracy. The Arab Spring has been called the last of the anti-colonial battles, but these scholars have not looked at Ethiopia. That distinction will fall to the Oromo. The Oromo condition arises from a legacy of colonialism that has been unrelieved for over 100 years, and we've established a pretty good genealogy of that colonial legacy. So in the face of this, what do the Oromo want? The Oromo want dignity, self-expression, self-governance. The Oromo want sovereignty, want their voices to be heard. They want to live together at peace with their neighbors, who also live in freedom, exercising their own sovereignty. Oromo want friends and allies across the world who will work with them to protect their forests from decimation, their water from pollution, their animals from starvation, their minerals from exploitation, their sons and daughters from capture. They want protection from dispossession of their ancient homelands. They want control of their own story. They want security. They want freedom from genocide. They want their human rights to be respected. They want healthy babies. They want to be free from AIDS, thyroid diseases, malaria, toxin-borne diseases introduced by unregulated industries. They want to live in and govern their own land by their own, with their own trees and with the birds whose calls they know well. They want freedom of communication. They want access to the internet. They need electricity, plumbing, water supply, education, languages, spelling, a window on the world. They want to be part of the global conversation. They want to form their own associations. They want experts and specialists who can assist them on their terms rather than impose alien ways on them. They want cell phones, or almost want education, freedom to express their culture. They want to dance without fear, dress in ways they find beautiful, comfortable, meaningful, to hear and respond to the cries and the interpretations of their poets and their musicians without fear of reprisal. They want to drink their own coffee. They want jobs. The list of aspirations of those who suffer oppression and injustice worldwide are these. How do they get it? Well, let's talk about it in terms that are restricted to this association. When the world hears Oromo aspirations and grievances loud and clear, they will stand with Oromo, as they did with the protesters of the Arab Spring. Oromos will know that they are not alone when others stand behind them. But Oromos must also stand with others, make connections, establish a two-way street in the formation of alliances. How can this come to pass, and what's the role of Oromo Studies Association here? Well, I think the natural allies of the Oromo are everywhere. Oromia is a case study in the major issues of the day, but her voice is not yet heard. OSA is small, and not enough of its demographic in this has changed, but It's strong enough to consider taking on an initiative which encourages and equips activists to join forces with others who suffer and are working to bring justice and peace. Now, OSA has accomplished a lot. Annual conferences, first held in conjunction with the annual meeting of one political organization, and then another, then finally a very deliberate move to an independent, unaffiliated status. A mid-year conference was started in 2006. The Journal of Oromo Studies has been published continuously since the early 90s, creating a legacy of documents that address a range of issues, primarily brought forward by people who have intense passion about the issues. And Oromo has the support of scholars around the world. Now, I propose that OSA move in a new direction with the intention to put more of its resources and energies into its primary objectives that were read at the beginning that I started with. Promoting scholarship in areas that will equip activists at the local level to work for justice and peace. OSA has a role to play in designing hypotheses, calling for the kind of data that will provide clear articulations of facts that can empower activists, encourage scholars, and increase productivity. This will improve the potential for productive alliances across the globe. In my view, OSA as an association needs to be active in recruiting scholars who work on topics that affect or are similar to what the Oromo experience, inviting them to consider research or analysis into the situation in Oromia when it parallels their own work. OSA needs to equip activists. Engaged public intellectuals can rally behind, investigate, and document many of the particular dimensions of the Oromo struggle, working alongside Oromo scholars. Our call and our mission in OSA is to promote. Let's do that. Let's promote investigation into everything that affects Oromo. This will open the door on creating connections and alliances at the local level in pursuit of justice. We will have to help newcomers who might come do some of the aspects of our work with us. They will push us to track down information they need to improve accessibility of what exists, to move into new areas. We may have to address translation issues, security issues. That's all part of the struggle. I'm just saying, here is where a part of the struggle is taking place and where many of you and more can choose to engage in new ways to enhance the struggle. We all know that getting the facts is a challenge in itself when the government does not encourage investigation, when scholars are intimidated, as we just heard from Dania, people who wouldn't answer him. There are challenges. When people are asked to do research in the hinterlands where most of the brutality and dispossession of the Oromo and others is now occurring. We all know this. We'll need to be attentive to the needs of people who come to help us and to address Oromo issues. Now, I mentioned at the beginning, for quite some time, academics took a dim view of people who pursued their scholarship with passion. It was suggested they might be biased or suspect, but over the years it's become clear that engaged scholarship is just as valuable as so-called detached scholarship, when the detachment is possible only because the researcher is sitting securely with the powers that be, safeguarded by the institutions that they were not questioning. The issue is not what your leanings are, but how your methodology is carried out, how you frame your hypotheses, how you retrieve, and how you handle the data. So let's pursue Oromo scholarship with integrity, with intensity, and with urgency. There are lives at stake. Let OSA call people to work with us. Get help in putting out the call that a living people with a valuable legacy, one that has the potential to contribute mightily to the well-being of the planet, is being lost, undermined, disabled, crippled, damaged. What kind of alliances can we form? Well, there are numerous. Religious groups can be natural allies, especially in fields of restorative justice. I have, as an example, have a connection with a Christian, a Presbyterian church, and as the result I shared yesterday, the group readily took on work to support girls' education through the REAL program that Sahai brought to us. It depends, of course, on the congregation, but there are justice issues on which progressives can work within the church structure, because at the heart of the Bible is a moral and ethical call to fight unjust superpowers. But restorative justice is not only a focus of the Christian church, but Arab Muslims who participated in the Arab Spring Uprising were standing up for justice, democracy, sovereignty, dignity, acting out of their religious beliefs. Oromos affiliated with OSA are part of the conversation about African engagement in Islamic Islamist movement. These connections can open a door with new sets of actors for understanding the Oromo plight and what the Oromo bring to the table. Wakifana Oromo have growing opportunities to establish a theological identity in an interfaith world, even as it is seriously endangered as one of the indigenous religions in Africa. Establishing a reputation for Oromo traditional thought on the global scene, as Ndebasiguyo is doing, by allying with groups that celebrate indigenous religions in South America, Asia, and elsewhere, may help preserve Oromo religion in Oromia. By providing the scholarship which supports these efforts, OSA contributes to establishing a place in the global relational network. It makes friends who appreciate the unique features of Oromo law, philosophy, and religion. A philosophy professor at Howard University studying Egyptian philosophy identified features of the ancient stories that in Egypt that he considered to be imports from elsewhere in Africa. On searching, he found that Oromo religion is the most likely ancient influence. Thanks to OSA, he made connections to knowledgeable scholars, Gamachu and Anissa Kassam among them. Their seminal work highlighting the essential features of the Oromo paradigm. And yesterday, here in this hall, we witnessed the kind of productive alliance that I'm talking about. Haptam Mbugo brought with him a scholar of genocide who's quite interested in the virtually untapped field of genocide documentation and encouraged a whole new area of research. They had found references to Oromo genocide in the writings of Makuri Bucha, Asafa Jalata, and these people now met here at OSA, and Haptam was proposing specific methods for expanding knowledge. So this is the kind of alliance, if multiplied and supported by OSA, will strengthen the hands of the Oromo. Oromo youth. The Oromo kids are excelling at the finest institutions the world has to offer. Many Oromo who have been raised with Oromo values are connecting in their own way with friends around the world, showing pride in their heritage, coming up with innovative suggestions